Well, let's see. Let me find a topic you may not be as passionate about. How about Venezuela? From your point of view, being in the private sector, right? I mean, you produce energy, and then you see what happens, with Venezuela, a source of oil, natural gas. How do you assess, what's happening there? Not only just Venezuela, but other countries that also have, supplies. You as a U.S. company, how do you factor that into supply and production, when you see these kinds of additional sources potentially coming into the markets?
Yeah, of course, new Venezuelan production, and I believe we will see that, growing Venezuelan production drives prices down. And I've always been that weird guy who spent I've been in many sectors of energy, but mostly in the oil and gas industry, and I've been a little bit lonely in cheering lower oil prices and lower natural gas prices. The shale revolution, just by the straight math, has saved U.S. consumers over $1 trillion every year. It's pushed down oil prices and it's pushed down gas prices. Well, why do I like low prices? Because 100% of Americans consume oil and natural gas every day of their life, and 1% of Americans produce oil and gas. So high prices are a win for 1%. They're overlapping, of course, but it's a loss. It's a net loss for the other 99%. So, and that's what business is supposed to be about, right? Competitive innovation to drive down cost, to deliver products to consumers at ever higher quality and ever lower cost. So yes, I have been a lifelong celebrator of lower oil prices, lower natural gas prices, lower coal prices, lower nuclear power plant costs, lower everything. If you can make energy cheaper, you make people's lives better. So Venezuela, of course, the policy wasn't about that, but it is a great and non-trivial secondary impact of what's going on in Venezuela. I'm sure everybody knows, like Venezuela for 26, now 27 years have been on a downward decline. About a 70% decline in the real GDP. Like, I think only 3 other nations in history have exceeded that degree of plunge in the real GDP of a country. Just a horrible thing for the 30 million Venezuelans. And of course, it gets people into criminality and drugs. And, a failed state has impacts in its neighborhood. It has impacts on the United States. And we've tried all sorts of policies to try to push better behavior in Venezuela over that 20-plus year period. And nothing has worked. And again, President Trump, if nothing else, he's iconoclastic. Well, nothing else has worked. We're going to do something different. And, Biden administration had a $25 million bounty on the head of Maduro and his wife, who are basically narco gangsters, and an incredible military operation without a single loss of American life, took them into custody. We arrested 2 criminals that were highly wanted in our country. And the other side impact is going to be this is tricky. There's challenges along the way, but it's going to likely be a massive improvement in the quality of life for Venezuelans. We're going to see a return of some of the Venezuelan diaspora. We're going to see huge benefits in the United States because energy prices are going to be lower. Criminality is going to be lower. The importing of guns, the kidnapping of Americans and human trafficking are going to go down. But yes, and then we have significant power right now, or influence over Venezuela, not because we have any American boots or guns on the ground, but because we're controlling today. We are controlling the sale of all of their oil and natural gas, and then we are taking those funds and placing them in American-controlled accounts and flowing them back to Venezuela. We're getting about a 30% higher realized price when we sell the same barrel of oil than they sell the same barrel of oil 3 weeks ago. And a quarter or a third of it was leaked out in corruption and was never going back to the government. It was going out to criminal gangs in Cuba and elsewhere around. And internal corruption in their own oil companies. So it's not the desired end state, but today we have an ability to drive change that could transform a country, transform our relations with that country and conditions of life here with no more bullets fired. It's a challenge, but I'm excited where we are. This is This is a creative, first of its kind. May not be the last of its kind, but first of the kind attempt to project American power for the betterment of Americans and the betterment of our hemisphere.
Yeah, I mean, I'm old enough to remember, and I'm from the Gulf of America region, where we were building refineries, engineering refineries, to take the heavy sour from Venezuela. This was before the shale revolution and all the breakthroughs, that you and your company did. But by design, we had great relations back then with Venezuela. A prior panel talked about this. It only made too much sense. And you can go back for 100 years before the Chavez and Maduro regimes. Great relationship. Our willingly. I mean, it was designed to take that specific crude. Project next 4 or 5 years in Venezuela, if political stability there, what would be the best outcome in Venezuela?
So the real quick history, when I was born, Venezuela was the third largest producer of oil in the world. U.S. was number 1, Soviet Union was number 2, Venezuela was number 3 in the world. Venezuela was top 10 in per capita income, peaceful, thriving democracy. Of course, a lot of money flowing in fast, corruption issues, not perfect, but a successful nation that was one of the wealthiest nations in Latin America, a great American ally, and of course, top-down control, dictatorship, or whatever, it's fallen down. So the goal is to go back where it was. So in the short term, we saw in Iraq, if you disempower, the debathification, everybody that was in power, everybody that has the guns, and everybody that knows how to run the levers of the civil service and the government, that doesn't go well. So we are dealing with the people with the guns today. We have, I think, the better faction of the people that have the guns in Venezuela, but this is not a democratically elected representative government of the Venezuelan people. We want to keep the nation together. We want to see the economic conditions improve as quickly as possible for the people that live in Venezuela. We want to see the return of rule of law and order. We're going to see, hopefully, significant growth in the economy, make the conditions so American businesses and others will go back into the country and invest, and ultimately on a pathway to a representative government that's chosen and represents the will of the Venezuelan people. That is, again, a peaceful, market-based U.S. ally, star member of our hemisphere. That's the vision.
Subscribe to One India and never miss an update. Download the One India app now.